I'm just a guy from Chicagoland, and I was swinging a 20-pound sledgehammer for about 12 years until my back gave out. I was out of work for 3 or 4 years before I finally started seeking treatments. Basically, my whole goal is to subvert the government and not, fall under coercion that they try to press on people. I mean, I was really heavy. I was 250 pounds, and I just wanted my body to look different. I'm bullet resistant, I guess you would have to say. I was shot 3 times and didn't even feel it. Basically, we didn't have a lot of friends after I was shot, and a lot of people were scared of us, and they didn't really want us around. And our only protection was, believe it or not, a documentary crew that was down there documenting our communities.
Okay, well, good morning, everybody. We have with us today to share his success story is Jason. Jason, welcome. How are you today?
I'm doing very well. Very happy to be here.
Good to hear. Where are you located, if you don't mind?
I'm in Morelia, Mexico right now. Usually I bounce around Mexico quite a bit, but I'm here for the time being, for at least the next 2 years, I hope.
Okay, Morelia. I'm not familiar. Where is Morelia, Mexico? What's that near? Perhaps maybe a big city.
Morelia is about 2 hours west of Mexico City, and it's a rather sizable, beautiful city. It's kind of like fall-like here year round. I don't have to worry about the heat. I don't have to worry about snow. It's really nice here.
Is that kind of coastal then? Is it near the coast?
Oh, no. It's smack dab in the middle of the country.
Got it. Okay.
Very close to Mexico City. Yeah. When I say 2 hours, Mexican roads are pretty slow. So it takes quite a time to get from point A to point B.
I see. I got it. Okay. Well, I guess let's just start with your background. I mean, what were you, this is a success story. So usually there's a challenge ahead of the success. So maybe you can kind of point us in that direction, or tell us about yourself if you don't mind.
Sure. I'm just a guy from Chicagoland, and I was swinging a 20-pound sledgehammer for about 12 years until my back gave out. And I was out of work for 3 or 4 years before I finally started seeking treatments, because I wasn't living a normal life. I wasn't able really to get out of bed or get off the couch. I was just sitting around all the time. And they were thinking I had degenerative disc disease because it was showing that in my spine. But eventually they settled on stenosis in my spine, where I had the narrowing of the spine, and I was starting to get pinched nerves all over my body. So I wasn't very functional. Every time I would move, I'd get this red hot poker somewhere in my body. And it was, every 15 to 20 minutes. And it was absolute agony living that way for about 3 or 4 years.
Yeah, I feel your pain a little bit. I got some neck pain I'm dealing with right now, and it's not particularly pleasant. And so anyways, so swinging a sledgehammer, are you doing like construction demo stuff, or what was
So living in Chicago, the ground gets really hard in the wintertime, and we were swinging a sledgehammer to put in real estate signposts. And that got really, really repetitive a lot. And for whatever reason, it started to damage my spine. And I'm not sure why it was doing that, but that's eventually what happened.
Yeah, I see. And then what prompted you to go to Mexico? I mean, I can see. The weather is nice, right?
So there was this really cool movement of anarchists down in Mexico, and I wanted to go live in a freedom community. So I packed up my car, my dog, and we came down to Mexico and lived this really, really crazy adventure.
I remember I interviewed one of your cohorts a while back. That's right. Now, okay, so. What was, because, you mentioned swinging the sledgehammer may have led to the degeneration or the problems in the back. Equally, I'm an orthopedic surgeon, so I have a decent understanding of the musculoskeletal system. But I think just as much as some of the trauma that occurs, and definitely there's trauma that happens, but some of that, we often see as a result of lifestyle, diet impacts our tissue quality. Our tissue maybe is more susceptible to injury when it's not as it's not to say you can't. If you're in a car wreck, you're going to get hurt. I mean, a high-speed car wreck doesn't matter what your diet is. I mean, there's a point. But I mean, what was your lifestyle like? What was your diet like? I mean, did you have pretty good health habits, or how would you describe that back then?
So I played sports every other day, softball, baseball, whatever I can get into. My diet was horrible, to be honest with you. I ate whatever came my way. I really loved spaghetti. I really loved pizza. I really loved Taco Bell was like my main go-to for lunch, because you're not earning a lot of money putting up real estate signposts. So at the time, all I could afford was Taco Bell. So I was getting the cheesy beef burritos every day. two of them every day for work and stuff like that. And my diet was I didn't focus on the diet at all.
You'd be happy. No, I think Taco Bell now has some vegan cheese options. So to make things even potentially worse, I suppose. But yeah, obviously Taco Bell's not the prime nutrition that you might want it to be. I think I've been there once in my life, if I can recall, and I don't remember. I don't think I much liked it. But so you get into this anarchist movement, and maybe you can explain that a little bit more. I mean, I know what an anarchist is, but I don't know enough about the movement to know what it's really about. What is that about?
Well, there's a greater umbrella of anarchy, and we all fit in different areas. You got the anarcho-socialists, the anarcho-mutualists, the anarcho-capitalists, the anarcho-communists, and stuff like that. I'm a Vonuan Voluntaryist. Basically, my whole goal is to subvert the government and not, fall under coercion that they try to press on people. And there was a group of people down in Mexico running around the city, just basically ignoring cops and going on police chases and stuff like that. And I was reading their stories through this cryptocurrency blog called Steam It. And it was just a lot of fun to watch. And I'm like, hey, I want to join this part of the fun and get down there and just start, seeing what life can be in Mexico when I don't have to get permission to open up a business or do whatever I want around there. And that was the main draw.
Well, let me, I guess you ask, you say, you're interested in subverting the government. The government probably doesn't like that, I would imagine. I mean, they probably, it's probably something they're not thrilled about, but Mexico has a government too. And so is it is it kind of a free for all, like secluded area, or how do you do that?
Well, so in Mexico, you really don't notice the government nearly as much. It's really hard to tax a population that only uses cash, and they aren't really in your way down here. Although I would have to say in Acapulco, where we wound up, you really could feel the presence of the government there, because there was it seemed like every fifth car was either a police vehicle or military or something like that. It was one of the most dangerous cities in the world.
Acapulco is.
Yes.
Interesting, because that's always considered like a sort of tropical destination vacation spot, but I didn't realize it was that really dangerous. And I guess that's, I mean, as you probably are aware, there's sort of this kind of push to go to this centralized bank digital currency sort of a narrative. And I know there's people that are developing, a lot of people are resistant to that, because they're like, if I can't use cash, then you can, not only control the money that I have and shut it off and turn it off, but also control what I'm allowed to spend it on. It's kind of an interesting sort of, why do you think that people want to use that as a currency? Why are certain banks and companies pushing for that? Is there some benefit to them outside of this dystopian thing that a lot of people are worried about? Is there some other reason they might want to choose that? Is it just cheaper for them to run, or why were they going that route?
Yeah, it is definitely a lot cheaper for them to run. I believe that they do have an agenda to lower their carbon footprint and things like that. And if you think about the carbon footprint of the average bank that's out there, with all the employees going back and forth to work to keep the lights on, to add security for everything going on like that, they have a general concern to lower the carbon footprint. On top of that, they also have things that they like and they don't like, and they want to design society and force humans to be and act a certain way under what they ideally think is best for the planet and themselves. Yeah, and it's just a much cheaper system to use is using a blockchain.
Interesting. Yeah, I know like I said, I know some folks that are into cryptocurrencies and particularly Bitcoin. There's a lot of folks that are Bitcoin enthusiasts that are also, oddly enough, carnivore people too, which is kind of, you have this whole sort of screw the system, I'm just going to do my own thing, and it's kind of interesting where it takes you. And so how did you, okay, so let me just go back to your health thing. You got a bad back, you're in pain, you're down in Mexico. Where does a nutrition fit in there? How does that evolve, I guess?
So it's kind of like a snowballing effect that that a lot of people go through. My particular story wound up on HBO called The Anarchists. And basically, me and my ex-wife and my dog went to Mexico, and things didn't work out so well for us. So my ex-wife wound up leaving, and I found myself in a situation where I was just alone. I was having a hard time taking care of myself. And I was kind of frustrated that I was just alone in general. So I was looking for answers because I had changed my diet several times just to try to address my back issue over those 3 years. And it just wasn't working out for me. And eventually I'm just thinking, well, I mean, I was really heavy. I was 250 pounds. And I just wanted my body to look different. And I saw a way that John and Lily looked, who were on the carnivore diet, who actually took the challenge for 30 days and then wound up doing it for about 90 days at the point when I met them. And they looked fantastic. So I'm like, okay, I'll jump on board and do this. And once I started doing it, I had rapid weight loss, to the point of the conclusion of like where my family was concerned that I was really, really ill. I got down to 165 pounds from 250, and it just concerned them. So, yeah, the weight loss. I wanted to be skinnier, look better, try to attract another girl and stuff like that. I really wasn't focused on my health, but what I realized is about after 3 months, the pinched nerves stopped happening so frequently, and then after 6 months, I didn't feel them at all anymore. It was quite spectacular to get my life back and actually be functional again.
Yeah, that is pretty cool. And I mean, there's a lot of data out there if you look into, low carb ketogenic style diets, as far as neuroinflammation. And we know that it's not just mechanical stress, it's also the biology. And when we're overweight, we have a lot of inflammatory biology going on. So when you reduce that, that certainly helps. And so how hard was it to do a carnivore diet in Mexico? I mean, some people
it's the easiest place on the planet to do it, in my opinion. Basically, meat is less than half the cost in the United States. Anytime that you go to just a regular carniceria, which is like a meat shop, it's mostly grass-fed. There isn't a lot of, like, the farmers here can't afford a whole lot to upkeep their animals and things like that. So they're just basically pasture feeding their animals and then sending it to market after that. And you get, oh man, I can't even explain how much cheaper it is here than it is in the United States for food. And then on top of that, you have to worry about what is going into the animals in the United States just to keep them alive until they hit the slaughterhouse.
Yeah, definitely. There's definitely some differences in the way they raise the animals, I think, in the two countries for sure. And I was in Mexico last year, and I got some really good beef, in the restaurants anyway, and the prices were definitely, even at like high-end restaurants, they were still like cheaper than they were in the U.S., as I recall. So how long did it take you, and what were you eating? Were you eating mostly beef, or was there some seafood or pork, or what were you eating, and how long did it take you to see that back pain go? Because you said you lost around 90 pounds or something like that. And how long did the weight take to come off?
The weight roughly took, it took about 3 months to lose 40 pounds. And then once Lily and I started living in the same house together, she was just strict. So like I would eat some peanuts every now and again and stuff like that. And I wasn't strict, and I would eat like whatever, fish, meat, chicken, beef. But when I started staying at Lily's house, she was feeding me all beef, basically, and then a little bit of bacon here and there and some eggs. And my weight just melted off so fast. It was kind of scary how quickly it was coming off me.
Yeah. And so as far as, obviously you lost the weight, your back pain got better. Were there any other kind of notices? Did you notice any other things? I mean, cognitively, skin, digestion, and any negatives? I mean, were there any negatives that came into this?
Yeah, there were a couple of negatives. Digestion was always an issue for me here for whatever reason. My body never was able to regulate. And at the very end, I was on the diet for 3 years. And at the very end, I started to get some lower back pain, which I'm kind of thinking that it was my kidneys developed stones or something like that. So I came on, and as I was coming off the diet slowly, it started to feel better. So that's the whole reason why I came off the diet. The positives, I'm bullet resistant, I guess you would have to say. I was shot 3 times and didn't even feel it. and all through the healing and stuff like that. I was running 10 days after being shot through the knee. And my mind was thinking a lot quicker. There wasn't a lot of brain fog. I'd wake up in the morning and I would just be sharp, like there's always that half a tick stepper or half a tick quicker in thought process.
All right. Well, so we have to delve into that. So you got shot several times while you were carnivore. And I mean, I guess I haven't heard that benefit before. You're more resistant to bullets, but how did that happen?
So me and my friends, we were running a conference down there parallel to another conference, and we were inviting a whole bunch of people. So we were trying to just push out some bad actors in the community. They didn't like that so much. So they hired a bunch of beach dealers to come up and throw a wall of bullets at me and my friend. My friend John had passed away, who was on the carnivore diet. I was shot 3 times, once through the knee, once in the wrist, and once in the chest. And I was able to pop right up after being shot and flee for my life and lock myself in a house, and they weren't able to get to me after that.
So all those injuries could be, the knee, any of those injuries could cut major vessels, but the chest one particularly, I assume you sought medical care at some point. How long did it take before you got to see somebody that could help you?
Maybe a half hour. We were waiting in the house, and I was asking Lily just to don't go out there. I'll just pass away here. And Lily just kept working and working and working until she finally, got the idea that the cartel was no longer there. Not the cartel, but those kids were no longer there with guns anymore. So we were able to get in my car, drive down to the hospital. In Mexico, it's really hard to explain where you're at, and it could take hours for an ambulance to find you. So it was quicker just to jump in my car and go to the hospital. And then when I get to the hospital, there are 3 flights of stairs I have to walk up. and I get to the emergency room, no kidding. And so I get to the hospital, and I'm walking up 3 flights of stairs, and we get in the emergency room. I'm not feeling any pain, really. I can feel limitations, like my right arm didn't work because I had a bullet that pierced my chest and went up into a nerve cluster into my armpit. And then another bullet went through my knee, and my knee wasn't functioning right. I wasn't able to fully straighten it out. So there was a lot of limping there, but I wasn't feeling any pain moving from point A to point B. So I walked up 3 flights of stairs into the emergency room. And the first thing they did was ask for money. So I gave them 6,000 pesos that were in my wallet, a wad of bloody pesos, but I handed it to them, and they accepted it. And then they took x-rays and then sat me down in a wheelchair, and then asked me for more money so that way they can start doing treatment. So I gave them my credit card. That was declined. Gave them my other credit card. That was declined because of fraud protection. And so they were wheeling me out of the hospital when someone comes in who heard that I was shot, and he offered to pay for all my treatment when I was in the hospital, and I just pay him back later and stuff like that. And he literally saved my life, because they were just going to wheel me out to the street and tell me go to a cash station, bring back more cash.
That's disconcerting, to say the least. It's kind of scary. Because in the U.S., you go to the ER. It's by law you have to be stabilized and treated, and you get somebody with multiple gunshots. You're saying, hey, your credit card company, you need to call your credit card. It's kind of like, it's got to be a bizarre thing. And so that would be one of the disadvantages perhaps of being in Mexico. If you get shot up, then maybe, obviously avoid being shot also helps, but that's kind of.
Yeah, you could get health insurance and stuff like that for where you'd be covered immediately. But the major issue was I was shot, and the doctors and administration was worried that the cartel would show up and start shooting up the building, and they wanted me out of there quick as possible. And then they called the police, and then next thing you know, there's 200 police and military surrounding the entire building just for me getting treated in the hospital, which was, just wild to see.
So this is in Acapulco, correct?
Yes. Acapulco, Mexico. Yeah.
And where you're at now, I can't remember the name of it, but is it safer than where you were?
Michoacan is a contested area, but Acapulco is a little different because they have 12 different cartels dividing territory all across Acapulco, where people aren't allowed to cross lines. Otherwise, it's going to end in bloodshed and stuff like that. Here, it's just one or two gangs fighting over area out in the countryside. So the city remains relatively safe, as normal as any other city in the United States that you would imagine. So like where I'm at right now, it's relatively peaceful. We opened our doors for a business here just about a week ago or so, just to earn some extra money. And, we have customers coming in and out all the time. So it's relatively safe.
So like if you go to visit Mexico, are there any places that are like pretty safe that you're not worried about all this gun violence and stuff like that? I can't remember where I was. I went down to, I guess, Tulum last year. That's and I didn't notice anything, but I mean, is there problems down there as well, or is it endemic throughout the whole country?
Yeah, no, I would say for vacationers, it's really, really safe. But if you have beef with somebody down here, your life's only worth like $1,000 to a person with a gun. And that has to, kind of take into account on how you behave and how you socially interact with people. And sometimes strategic retreat in a confrontation is much more wise than it would be to flat out just, argue with a person until, that person goes nuts and hires somebody.
Now, you'd mentioned at the beginning, anarchists, and you said, I'm going to leave the United States because I can kind of do what I want without the oversight and the regulation. Is the United States like mad at you or anything like that? Or can you come back to the US if you wanted to, or is there some sort of problem with that?
No problems with me re-entering the United States. I'm not on the run for anything. I haven't broken any laws, and they don't really care if I cross a border or not. Primarily, it's the social aspect of just not feeling welcome in the United States anymore. Like, everybody around me is about controlling their neighbor, and I'm more about live and let live type of situation. And I don't want to coerce people to keep up their house or to plate their car or to have paperwork to cross the border and stuff like that. It's just not an interest for me. So when I come to Mexico, I feel right at home because all those things are happening here where I can just feel more comfortable.
Interesting. And so I guess you're still doing this anarchist sort of movement, I guess. Is that fair to say?
Yeah. We have a sizable community here in Morelia. There's about 25 people down here that pop into my pizza restaurant every now and again and say hi and stuff like that.
Okay, so that's the business as a pizza restaurant. So you'd mentioned you were on the diet, and then I think you said you had to come off due to kidney, I guess maybe a kidney stone or something like that. What are you currently doing these days?
Me, I just I eat a little carefully. So when I feel myself getting a little heavy, or if I have any kind of back issues, I back off of carbohydrates altogether and I just go straight meat. But I still consume carbohydrates regularly and stuff like that, and it definitely doesn't bother me as much as it had in the past.
Yeah, it's interesting because a lot of people, and I tell people to use this diet as a tool. Maybe for a 3-month, 6-month period of time, and then see where you want to go from there. And some people are able to transition away, and some prefer the simplicity and the ease of just sticking with meat mostly or all the time. So, and I'm in that latter category. I just, it's just easy for me to eat, steaks a lot. But, are you, obviously there was guys that didn't like you. Are they still around? Are you worried that they're going to still come after you? Or is the sort of the conflict is it kind of resolved basically where it's not an issue anymore?
So the conflict seems resolved. The one person that was absolutely crazy and that just wouldn't give up on trying to hurt somebody down here, he eventually took his own life, sadly. But as far as everything goes, after that point, everything seems to be resolved. There were a few more people that did have issue with me, but they no longer live in Mexico. They're back in the United States. And I don't even know if they were for sure involved in the whole thing. I just do know that the one person who took his own life, and then the other one, you could just speculate from afar. You really can't see into their lives. They were all living in the same house together, so they had to know what was going to happen. But it was just one of those things where you just have to learn to live with failure after it happens. then bounce back.
What is, you know, obviously you said that you're kind of with this group of anarchists, you know, 2025 in the local area, and probably, I don't know how, I'm sure there's a lot in Mexico altogether. What about with regard to, you know, do you think, again, I mentioned the sort of the Bitcoin crew, where there's folks that are kind of, again, they're outside the sort of the norms in a way with what their thoughts are on the monetary system, and they, a lot of them cluster into carnivore. Was that, do you think being an anarchist made you more open to trying carnivore, or was it just, I don't know. Do you think there's more, like a more higher concentration of that, or what's the carnivore scene like in Mexico? Is there a lot of people doing this diet?
So it's kind of interesting. There are a lot of people doing this diet in the anarchist movement. There's also a lot of people doing the vegan diet in the anarchist movement, and kind of, you know, they're kind of like bipolar, like polar opposites, not bipolar. They're polar opposites, so they're constantly bickering amongst themselves. What can I say? How I got into it primarily was I was desperation. I was on neuro blockers. I was drinking, trying to subside some of the pain on neuro blockers, which was damaging my liver. And then I was using weed, and I was taking kratom at 3 o'clock in the morning when I wake up, when the pain would wake me up. And I'd take kratom just to fall back asleep for another few more hours, and I'd wake up back in pain again to start the whole day over again. So desperation really put me on the carnivore diet, and then watching John and Lily, their bodies transform, and I wanted that for myself, and I did get it.
Yeah, it's interesting. And so have you been able to, I mean, did anyone kind of be influenced by you? Obviously being, you know, losing the weight and also becoming relatively bullet resistant, I suppose. Did that impress upon anybody? Like, I mean, you know, I'm sure there's a lot of metabolically unhealthy people in Mexico. I mean, I know there is. I mean, there's a lot of obesity down there. I mean, have you been able, do you talk to people about it ever?
It's not a topic that comes up very often. It did right after the shooting, and a lot of people jumped on the carnivore diet, and they gave it a try too. And yeah, so some people just come off it or whatever, but it was quite a fad here for a minute, and the veganism was here. The vegans here now, so we got. I'm mostly in a vegan community, if that makes sense. And it's kind of weird being the outlier in the vegan community, coming from a carnivore background and stuff like that. But it's a little different. I find carnivores are a little bit more rational and level-headed, and vegans are very emotional, and they want to feel that upwards feeling all the time. And if they don't, they get kind of erratic and angry at you. So.
Yeah, I mean, it's, you know, I think a lot of people would say that occurs, and again, it's obviously there's a lot of bias in that. But do you find? I mean, so I mean, a high percentage of the anarchists are actually vegan. Is that fair to say?
Where I'm at, yes. Most of them are omnivore, and then out in Puerto Vallarta, there's like an entire group of anarchists that are just carnivores. So. There's probably like, you know, 5 to 10, I would guess on the high side would be 10, people that are just dedicated to being carnivores out in Puerto Vallarta. And, yeah, I mean, that's probably the largest anarchist community in Mexico, by the way, as well. So you're going to get all sorts of different types of people there.
In Puerto Vallarta. Now, I was there a few years ago. Is that a relatively safe place, or is that all, or is that?
Yes, sort of it is relatively safe as far as your personal self goes. Your property, on the other hand, if you drive your vehicle down there and you leave stuff out in your seat, it's kind of like San Francisco, expected to get stolen.
Yeah. Okay. I see. Yeah. We didn't drive. We flew down, and so interesting. So it just got a little bit of a different world there. So what? I guess. You know, because I've visited Mexico. A lot of people come down. It's a popular tourist spot for U.S. citizens, obviously. What about living there? I mean, would you say are some of the biggest differences? I mean, you said you like a relative sense of freedom, I guess, but what do you think the main differences are? Having lived in Chicago, obviously the weather is different. I lived up in Chicago area for a while. And I know 6 months of gray skies and dirty snow. I mean, you get tired of that stuff for sure. But what's the biggest differences, I guess, the way society functions down there?
Everyone greets each other like as we pass. It's not just a vague smile like it is in the United States, where like you try to show someone you're not a threat by giving them a smile, like just a soft smile. Down here, everyone like literally greets each other, like buenos dias, buenas tardes, buenas noches, and everyone is super friendly right away. That's the first aspect. The second aspect is the affordability. The affordability here is just off the charts compared to the United States. Right now, my current rent is about $275 a month. The utilities, my electricity is $10 a month. The gas bill, I buy once every 3 months. The garbage, I have to pay about 50 cents every time I take it out and stuff like that. So the affordability is another one. And then the walkability of the cities. If you're living in a city or something like that, you're able to, like within three blocks of your house, you're able to get whatever you want. I've got a large market within 3 blocks of my house that I regularly frequent. I'll go sit down, have coffee, I'll buy all my groceries, and then I'll just walk back home. It's just everything is a lot tighter here, if that makes sense. You know how people are afraid of the 15-minute cities and stuff like that. In Mexico, every city is basically a 15-minute city because not a lot of people have money to get from point A to point B, like buying a car and using gas and having insurance and everything like that. So everything has to be close. And that's the way it is. It's just that this 15-minute city doesn't have a lot of security that the other ones that are being planned right now. So,
yeah, and so I mean, I guess you're still a U.S. citizen. I mean, could you have dual citizenship with Mexico? I mean, do you have an interest in? Could you potentially get Mexican citizenship?
So as far as citizenship goes, I only use it as a means to cross the border to go back and see my family in the United States. If I didn't have family in the United States, I just wouldn't go anymore. I'd just stay in Mexico. And Mexico doesn't necessarily require you to be a citizen or anything. Really, the laws are relatively lax around here. There have been cases of people being picked up by the local police and detained for up to 2 weeks and then let go and told that the people were told to get their papers in order. But those are few and far between. Primarily, Mexico doesn't care about what your immigration status is. So, like for me, I would just prefer not to bother with citizenship, if that makes sense.
Does that impact like your ability to buy property and things like that? If you wanted to like buy a house or something like that, I mean, is there like you have to be a citizen, or I mean, I don't know.
Within 100 kilometers of the, from what I understand, I'm stating facts here, and I should just say, from what I understand, within 100 kilometers of the ocean, U.S. citizens or outside citizens are not allowed to own property unless they put it into a trust. And that trust has to be Mexican based trust. And basically you pay like $500 a year for that trust to hold the property or something like that. And then you can have property within 100 kilometers of the oceans.
Yeah, interesting. And then as far
other than that, you can own property. Sorry, I forgot to mention that part.
and you said when you got shot up, I guess it was a couple of years back. I think. I mean, are you pretty much healed from that? I mean, did you have any long lasting sequelae from those different bullet injuries?
So there was no pain, but my right arm did not work for 6 months, and I was shot in February 1st, 2019. And basically 10 days after, I'm sprinting away from cops. I'm already running from cops about 10 days after being shot. So, yeah, there really wasn't a lot of effects other than just losing access to my arm because the bullet was sitting in a nerve cluster.
Was that ever removed, or did it just resolve itself?
Oh, it's still in there. It's just sitting there. The nerve cluster just stopped being annoyed, so I have access to my arm again.
Yeah, that's a lot of times you don't want to take out these bullets because, like I said, you could do more damage getting them out. Particularly depending what they're next to. And so you said 10 days later you're running from the cops again. What do you want to share what that was about, or?
Yeah, I was so. Basically, we didn't have a lot of friends after our shot, and a lot of people were scared of us, and they didn't really want us around. And our only protection was, believe it or not, a documentary crew that was down there documenting our community. So we had planned to go up to the top of the hill where John had died and talked about what happened and everything like that. And everybody got spooked and didn't go. So I went up there and did the interview by myself, just with a camera phone and a mic, and just sat down and started talking about my feelings, stuff like that. I actually got on camera the little foot chase that I got in. I ran about 200 yards. And these white trucks came pulling down the dead end street that I was in. And I couldn't identify them. I didn't know what they were. They definitely didn't look like friendly people. So I got up and started running away. And obviously they wound up catching me because I wasn't at my full strength at that point. But they caught me, and they looked like they were cartel. They were holding, one guy had an Uzi. I'm not even kidding. And another guy was, there was like 3 or 4 guys chasing me, and they brought me back in front of the house and questioned me for a few minutes to find out why I was there. They thought like I was breaking into the house and stealing stuff and all of that, but the cops already stolen everything anyway, everything of value. And I just basically said I was shot here, and I was saying goodbye to my friends. All of Mexico gets 8 days to say goodbye to their family members when they die, but I can't even come up here and grieve alone without you guys bothering me and stuff like that. And eventually they told me to leave, otherwise they arrest me, and I, walked off and left after that.
Okay. You said, because you didn't have health insurance before, they were going to, shove you out in the street, go to a gas station, get money before they'll treat your bullet wounds. I mean, are you able to have health insurance now, or?
I'm able to have health insurance now. It's a little bit out of my price range at another $87 a month. Because like I'm only working for, at best $75 a day down here when I earn money. So like, you don't earn a lot of money down here, and that's
why everything's so cheap, because no one has any enough money to buy things.
Yes.
I mean, it's like, I guess if you come down as an American tourist with a lot of relatively decent amount of money, you can do pretty well down there, and it's kind of interesting with that. So here's another thing. So I mean, obviously in the U.S., people are worried about, there's so many people coming across the Mexican-U.S. border. I mean, there's just like, I guess we're seeing like hundreds and hundreds of thousands of people coming across. Is that, I mean, somebody told me it's not a lot of people from Mexico though, because people in Mexico don't really, just kind of maybe want to stay in Mexico, but it's, other people from other parts of the world, Central America, South America. Does any of that, are you impacted by any of that stuff? I mean, you see people like swooping through where you are on the way up to the U.S. border?
We have maybe like 20 Dominicans in Morelia that I've noticed that, walk up and down the streets asking for change or hustling for a little bit of money. As far as the people crossing into the United States, it seems from this side aspect, they're being used as pawns, and they're being bussed up and down the Mexican border along the United States to show that there's more people than are actually there. And then occasionally you can see a very small group of them cross together, being shepherded by a couple of white people walking from south to north up to the United States. But my friend Danny Sessions usually checks in on this every now and again and goes down the border to report on who's crossing and all that stuff. The day that Elon Musk was there, Danny was there 2 days before and only found 30 people at the border, and most of them were all immigration except for a couple of people. And it's not this mass open door of people coming into the United States. And if these people would just stay in Mexico, their lives would be easier because they can hustle for the money and not get bothered as much as they would in the United States. It's not like you can just go buy a pizza oven and walk out into the street corner and then start selling pizzas, or open up your garage and start selling pizzas like I did. In the United States, you need permission, you need this, you need that, you need to fill all these codes, and you have to do all these aspects. And then on top of that, you got the tax man bothering the living heck out of you. And and so these people would be better suited to stay in Mexico if they were actually here, if you know what I mean.
How much? Because in the news right now, particularly, it's obviously it's the politics in the United States is never ending, and everybody's one side squawking at the other, and a lot of people are talking about the border is it's a huge crisis in the United States, and we hear about it. I hear about it. It seems like it's always over my social media feeds. I see it all the time. Is that something that people in Mexico are talking about much? Are they like, is it just like a minor issue, or do they like, are they concerned about the border migration in and out? I mean, is there a lot of, there's probably not a lot of people sneaking from the U.S. into Mexico, or is that even a problem?
No, as a matter of fact, like back in 2017, 2018, before they built the borders up better, I used to completely blow off immigration right at the border going into Mexico, and they would try to flag me down, and I just drive right through, just come into Mexico. Yeah, they don't ask for your passport when you walk into Mexico. You know, like you just kind of like walk in, and it's all voluntary to fill out your visa paperwork. And then if a cop, or not a cop, but if an immigration officer catches you without your visa paperwork, you're most likely, you know, he'll want a bribe. Otherwise, he'll detain you until he gets a little bribe out of you. And it's not as strict as the U.S. here. It's just an entirely different world. So it's a lot freer, in my opinion, other than some stupid laws that exist. It's not 100% freer, but it's just freer in a different way that suits me. And I just feel like, yeah, Mexico doesn't care if you cross into Mexico from south to north or north to south. They just don't really care very much, if that makes sense.
You know, what are the major, I guess, freedoms that folks in Mexico enjoy that you have experienced, like to you? I mean, what's the major benefit from a freedom standpoint versus, say, the U.S. or Europe or any other? I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of countries you could probably contrast it to. And are there other places that you would say are even better than Mexico in your mind? I mean, I don't know. I mean, I know like there's a place, El Salvador, which was has just been transformed under their new president over the last few years. It was kind of a war zone, super dangerous place, and he basically threw all the criminals in jail, basically, and it's now like put the country on a Bitcoin, you know, as legal tender there and stuff like that. So what are your thoughts on why is Mexico? What are the major benefits from a freedom standpoint, you think?
Well, freedom of movement is not very good in Mexico. Freedom of movement from going to point A to point B type of stuff, it's nothing like the U.S. is superior when you can just, you know, move from point A to point B. In Mexico, they got all these regulations when you're moving. If you're moving a house full of stuff, they're asking all sorts of questions. They're pulling you over at a checkpoint and all that other kind of stuff. For economic activity, as far as just opening up a business, like whatever idea, I mean, like whatever idea that you have, you literally can just open your garage door, and it doesn't matter how dirty your place looks. You can open your business and start in that moment. And that's primarily what it attracts me most. Another reason is that this economy is cash based. So everyone here basically is just using cash and circulating that. But we do have these, I just recently started circulating these things called gold backs. These are paper made of gold that I've been trying to circulate around, and unfortunately nobody spends them. They just collect them. So like it doesn't work as a currency here. Bitcoin, everybody's very interested, but never tends to use it. But the cash-based economy where no one's paying taxes, that really, really appeals to me. And property taxes are crazy low. Like for a house, a mansion in Acapulco, I think that the property taxes on a 7-bedroom mansion in Acapulco was like $1,000 a year. It was absolutely insanely low. And a lot of these people, they never finish their home, so they never really pay for taxes other than just land tax. They don't have house taxes and stuff like that. So those are some of the things that I really like. The things that I don't, the gun laws here doesn't prevent people from having guns. Obviously, I was shot. So the gun laws here are kind of like a real bummer. And then the freedom of movement. So if you're going up and down the highway, there's probably a police checkpoint along the way. And they'll be detaining random cars every now and again.
Yeah, I assume they just want to bribe, basically. I mean, I've seen that. Like when I was in, I remember I was in Tanzania, same thing, driving around, police checkpoint, just want to shake you down for some money, you know, give them whatever, and then they let you on your way. But I mean, it's kind of like, I guess the corruption is pretty much out in the open, I suppose, whereas in the U.S. it's a little bit more behind closed doors, I suppose. I mean, that's one of the things people point to. And as far as, you know, well, I mean, you know, so if anybody can open a business, right, and do whatever they want, no one cares. How do you know who to trust? I mean, I mean, you just have to use your own instinct because, you know, in the U.S., just like, you know, we know there's certain regulations and supposedly they're designed to protect us. And I think in some cases they do, or some people, it's maybe, some people consider it an unnecessary hindrance. So how do you like know you're not going to get food poisoning and you go to a restaurant, or you're not going to get whatever ripped off or anything like that?
Well, you use your eye for food poisoning. Google is a great source. Like you could just look up on the app the restaurant or business that you're with, and then read through the complaints, and then kind of adjust your risk level to the complaints that you're reading. All the 5-star stuff, you just don't know if they're real or not. So primarily, you're just using eye testing and Google to see if you can trust somebody to get things done. Most of the time, a lot of people, Mexico is kind of really, really good about following through when someone owes something and actually getting that person to pay. That's a little surprising. They will detain an individual until they pay up.
So like if you go to somebody's store and, I don't know, or somebody does a job for you and then you refuse to pay them, they go to the local police or whoever's enforcing I mean, I know some of there's this sort of concept of cartels kind of running territories, and they kind of act almost as a police type in some ways, I guess. Is that, I mean, are you usually dealing with government people, or do you know it's government, or could it be cartel based, or how does that sort of work?
So primarily the cartels are interested in high value food, and they're interested in drugs and some human trafficking. I haven't seen a lot of human trafficking, but I've seen a lot of the food in the area that I'm in. Avocados are huge in this area that are basically all cartel run and stuff like that. And typically, like for me as a Vonuan, I usually just avoid cartels altogether. I don't deal with them. I don't go near them. I don't want anything that they have, so I just avoid them. But those are the trades primarily that they get into. Sometimes they get into taxi services, window washing services. Like there are people just stand on the street corner and wash your windows. Those are kind of cartel owned. They fight over the territory and stuff like that for, washing people's windows. Small, like little free hustles, which is a little surprising down here at times. And I personally, for me, I don't notice the government or the cartels here unless I see them, like with my eyes, because I don't interact with them at all.
I mean, how do you know? I mean, are they wearing a sign that says, "Hey, dude, I'm in the cartel"? They have a little badge or something. I mean, I mean, it's got to be. I can't imagine they're advertising that, or maybe they do. I don't know.
Usually, when you see a cartel guy, they have a really nice vehicle and some tattoos, and you know that's a cartel guy.
Interesting.
On occasion in Acapulco, they'd be carrying really, really nice guns in Acapulco as well.
Some nice guns, nice cars, tattoos. Because I mean, there's people that, I know there's people that, like wealthy people from the U.S. and other places, they'll have homes, like second homes, third homes down in these nice places. Are they like having to deal with the cartel folks in some way or fashion? Do they have to pay bribes or I mean, I don't know, do they run those areas too?
I'm sure it's happened occasionally to a few people, but for the most part, I've never even heard of it. Like I can imagine a cartel targeting somebody who has a lot of money and then making them pay for security services, but I've never heard of it. It's just something that I would think that they would think to do in the first place if that were happening, that type of thing. But I've never seen it personally.
Interesting. So how often do you get back to the U.S.?
Once a year at best, maybe twice. When my dad was passing last year, I was there for most of the year, just helping him get through it and stuff like that. He took the COVID shot, and then he went from COPD to idiopathic pulmonary fibrosis overnight, and then eventually passed away about a year and a half later.
Interesting. Yeah, I guess you were in Mexico during the whole COVID epidemic or pandemic, I guess. What was your experience with that? Was it mass vaccination, mandatory stuff? Or are they pretty open with how did it go down there? Because I didn't hear much about Mexico.
So Mexico is absolutely wild. You could imagine every corporate place demanded you have a mask and take your temperature as you walked in the door. And even in Puerto Vallarta, they tried doing the vaccine passport because the Canadians were demanding it. And it just took a few of us to go to the restaurants that were asking for the vaccine passports just to get turned away. And their customer, or not their customers, but their employees got so sick of it, they stopped asking for the passport, and that became a non-existent thing. All the small shops and all the small businesses, they didn't care if you were wearing the mask or not. And you were welcome just about everywhere that was not corporate owned if you didn't want to wear a mask or be vaccinated or take your temperature before you walked in the building. The scariest part is I was down for Anarchapulco 2020 or 2021. 2021. And there was this huge line of cars, and we found out it was backed up for 10, 15 kilometers. And they was all going to the airport, and they're all waiting in line to get vaccinated. Cars full of people just wanting to get vaccinated. It was never really forced upon the population, and maybe in one or two cities they tried to force it, and it worked out very poorly for those places. And I know 3 restaurants that did try to do it in Puerto Vallarta went out of business trying to force the vaccine passport.
Yeah, I guess and I guess I don't know, depending on who you have enforcing it. I don't know if the police are involved or the cartels involved, or just leaving it up to people to volunteer to comply with that, I suppose. Interesting. So you said I think you said you was an HBO. Was there an HBO documentary that you did, or what was?
Yeah, I was in HBO, The Anarchists, and it aired about a year ago. And it's a 6-part docuseries surrounding this event that we throw every year called Anarchapulco. And me and Lily, we still work for it today. I set up the internet, and then Lily is kind of like the organizer. She does a lot of heavy organizing of the event and customer service work and things. And
what does an event like that entail? I mean, just hang out and chat, or what do you do? I mean, I'm just wondering what it would be.
Oh, no, I totally get it. So there are workshops. There's this grand stage for speaking. There's a lot of nightlife. So it just depends on what your fancy is. And then we have different levels of tickets that you could buy. You could buy the VIP ticket that gets you into all sorts of dinners and full access to everything. You could just buy the general admission ticket, which I think gets you into nightlife and some days and speeches. And then there's workshops on top of all that. And basically, it's just all freedom oriented based on how to expand yourself, make money, and things like that. And the production value that we had the past couple of years was over the top, fantastic, huge screen, a stage, a beautiful environment out in the middle of the jungle that we had to beam internet into and literally set up a mesh network so everything can function properly and send out to the internet. It's quite something.
Interesting. And so the workshops are like how to be a better anarchist, or is it how to survive, or how to like, I don't know. I mean, what is it? What would a typical workshop be? Like, what would be like a popular workshop?
So one of the most popular workshops that we had was jailbreaking your tablet and then de-Googlifying it, and just putting Lineage, which is an operating system for a tablet that Google doesn't spy on you on everything unless you want them to, type of stuff. There was a Earthship building one. There's tons of yoga ones. There's tons of health and diet and all that other kind of stuff. So all that stuff goes down there, and pretty much is whatever cool idea that you have, you could present it as a workshop. And, charge a little fee to get into the workshop and stuff like that, and share your ideas and, grow your customer base that way.
Has your appearance in that docuseries, The Anarchists, has that positively impacted your life, negatively impacted your life, made no difference? I mean, did it, obviously probably more people had heard about you because they saw it on TV. Did it do anything to you?
It was a roller coaster. I got to tell you, the anarcho-communists, mutualists, and socialists, they hated my guts. They were glad I was shot. They were glad my friend was died, and I got a ton of death threats. To all the single men out there that went through what I went through, I was kind of like this guy that everybody wanted to talk to, because my ex-wife had left me for somebody else on TV, and it didn't look very good. And tons of men go through this stuff on what your value is and who you are as a person. And I had to like try to explain to these people, like, you know, there are options in this world. I went from not being able to get a date before the Anarchist series to, you know, just it was just so easy. All I had to do was just say hello to a person, and suddenly they were interested in me. So it was it's a very wild experience being on there. I think it opened my eyes up to this culture in the United States where men are just not valued as much as they used to be. And coming down here to Mexico, getting a girlfriend and seeing just how much she values me as a person, you know, like I was married for 16 years, and that person didn't even come close to treating me the way this person did. And I have to say, like, it's just been an absolute roller coaster after the series. Gosh, I wish I had strong points to hit on. I just, you know, it was just wild. And now things have calmed down. I've been in a relationship for a year. Things are very normal now, and people have completely forgotten about me. Occasionally I'm recognized in the street and someone says hi to me and stuff like that, but it's very rare now.
And so, and what is the direction you see yourself heading? Do you have like short-term, long-term plans? I mean, is there like, I'm just going to hang out and be an anarchist in Mexico and, you know, open my pizza shop and just chill out and enjoy life? Or do you have like a 10-year plan, or what's the thought? Or do anarchists even have 10-year plans? I don't know.
So when you're looking monsters in the face and they literally want to kill you, and they're trying to end your life, and you're in that moment, you wonder why you spent all your time the way you did before that moment. And now I spend all my time focusing on just being happy for me and my family, and nothing else matters. Like, I don't care if I don't earn a lot of money. I don't care if I'm poor. I don't have any huge goals other than just being happy with the people that I love.
No, I think that's that's definitely a noble thing to want. I mean, I think we all ultimately want that, you know, and sometimes some of the other stuff actually kind of detracts from that. So, well, you know, I'll tell you, this has been interesting. It's not our usual fare for a topic, but I think it's interesting nonetheless. And I wish you continued health and the best. And, you know, is there anything else you want to share before we go?
I would say, if you're thinking about the carnivore diet, if you're just having health issues, whatever, just give yourself 30 days on a carnivore diet. And I think it will go a long way for you understanding how your body works.
Yeah, fair enough. And if somebody's interested in the anarchy community in general, you said it's called Anarchapulco or something like that, like Acapulco, but anarchy in front of it. Where do they go for that?
Anarchapulco.com. Yeah, you can easily get into that. You also have the Freedom Cell group movements by Derek Bros. And then you also have World Alternative Media, which is part of our community. Josh Segerson runs that. And you might be able to reach out through there and get some information about Puerto Vallarta.
Interesting. Well, I might just have to check out, I think I have HBO at the house. I might have to check out that little series and watch it for myself, because it sounds pretty crazy. So anyway,
Jason, bring a seatbelt for episode 4.
Got it. Okay. Thank you. All right. Thanks everybody. Jason. Appreciate it. Y'all have a great rest of your day. We'll see you guys back tomorrow. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.